Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video. And this week, man, we got UFC 292. We got one of the bigger pay-per-view cards this year. So definitely pumped up, ready for it. And coming off another successful event where we cashed on the Dana White Contender Series. So, man, like I said on the Dana White Contender Series video, we've been doing really well. We've been winning a lot of bets recently and making a good bit of money. So if you're not on the Patreon, I don't know what you're doing, man. You should go over there. You should get access to those breakdowns. You should start building a bankroll, making some money, and enjoying some fights and cashing some bets. So definitely think you should go over there, support the channel, patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru, and I got 8 bets already for this UFC card. I got some underdog bets and feeling pretty confident this week. So definitely urge you guys to go over there and make yourself some money, because I definitely think we're going to be cashing at the betting window at the end of the night. But besides that, man, hit the like button, put some comments down below. Let's try to blow this video up, get a little bit more interaction. I would really appreciate that. And another thing, I'm actually going to be doing a video tomorrow on Addicted to Combat's page. We're going to be doing a breakdown for this card. So if you don't know his channel, go check it out and subscribe so you can go watch that tomorrow. And it's going to be a fun time breaking down the card with him. He's a really good bettor and predictor here also on YouTube. But let's get in this first fight of the night, man. We got Maryna Moroz. She's taking on Karine Silva. And this is a very interesting fight. I mean, it's a rematch. Maryna Moroz, she's looking to kind of work her way back into the mix. She was ranked. She was going in against a top 10 opponent in Jennifer Maia. She was on a 3-fight win streak. And she ended up losing that fight. So fell out of the rankings. And really the major issue with Moroz hasn't been her performances, but just her inactivity. She's had more canceled fights than scheduled fights in the UFC just since 2020, or than fights that she's actually fought. Just since 2020, Moroz has had to pull out of 6 different fights. This will be her first fight of 2023, and hopefully she can get to the cage and fight again this year. Overall, though, she's done well in the UFC. She just has to get a little bit more active if she wants to get back in that top 10 picture. And Karine Silva, she's 29 years old, so she's young. She's up and coming. She's won 7 fights in a row. She's undefeated in the UFC with 2 first-round submission finishes. And she's obviously peaking right now, very dangerous. Beating Maryna Moroz will get her to that next level in terms of probably a top 10 opponent next. And it'll avenge a loss that she had early in her career to Maryna Moroz, where Maryna Moroz and Karine Silva, they actually fought in 2014, and Moroz got the armbar submission win in the first round. So now a little bit older, wiser, a better fighter. Silva's looking to come back and even the score here. And when you look at Karine Silva, she's been very impressive. She's one of the most athletic and powerful girls in the division, I would say. She's aggressive. She's explosive early. She throws fast, heavy kicks. She has clean 1-2s. Her footwork is solid. She has good foot speed, too, when she's fresh. She doesn't have the greatest striking, but she's a handful with her speed, power. She throws good straight punches. She could potentially struggle, I believe, against a more crafty striker long term. I think she slows down, and we're going to probably figure that out in this match with Maryna Moroz. Silva does tend to get the job done early. So if that doesn't happen here, then I do think that even though she's the more dangerous striker, Moroz will be the more effective striker over 15 minutes. But Karine Silva is a very good grappler. She times her takedowns well. She has explosive double legs. She'll get girls against the cage and take them down from there. And once Silva can get on top, she's aggressive with her submission game. She's been able to submit her last 6 opponents in a row. And most of Silva's finishes on the ground are either front chokes or leg locks. She also has a couple arm bars. The last time Silva got submitted, it actually came via knee bar, and I think she took that a little personally because before that loss, she hadn't earned a leg lock win in her pro career. But since then, she's gotten 2 leg lock finishes. Her last fight, we saw her tear Ketlin Souza's knee apart with the knee bar. So it's going to be interesting to see if Silva wants to test herself on the ground again, though, with Maryna Moroz, or just try to keep it standing, because the first fight between these two, I think you can really just throw away. It was 9 years ago. Both fighters are very different now. But the way that fight went down, just to give context, was Maryna Moroz pulled guard very early in the fight, within 5-10 seconds of the fight, started fishing for her trademark armbar, and after a couple minutes, she ended up armbarring Karine Silva in the first 2 minutes of the fight. So Silva, she has lost 2 of her 4 fights via submission. Her last submission loss was 6 years ago, and it was also before her streak of submission victories. So you could tell she's leveled up her grappling. Cardio is certainly a question mark for Silva. She has to prove she can beat a girl in this top 15 level too. If you look at her record, she's finished all 16 of her wins, 12 in the first round, 4 in the second round, and then she's 0-2 in fights that have made it to round 3. So that's something that you have to keep an eye on here, especially with Maryna Moroz having never been finished in her career. And Maryna Moroz, she's an underrated fighter. On the feet, she's extremely active. She likes to point fight. She'll throw a lot of air balls where she's just throwing shots at the air, but she's still throwing. And she has fast jabs, straight punches. She'll attack the body really well. She chips away with leg kicks and just has a lot of activity. And she has solid defense. She has a really good chin. She's only been dropped 1 time in her whole UFC career. She's never been finished. Her kicking defense and ability to catch kicks, I think, could be a factor here. She could catch a kick of Silva and get her down and control in that top position, tire Silva out. But I also think Silva has a chance to get to Moroz a little bit with leg kicks because Moroz does have some issues with that. But Moroz is an underrated grappler, man. She's improved her wrestling. She isn't the most explosive fighter, but good clinch takedowns or double legs are better than they used to be. And when she gets in the top position, she's very heavy, and her ground and pound is on point. She is, for all that she gets, discredited for being kind of a point fighter on the feet, on the ground she throws heavy elbows, and she's going for the finish. And I believe with even with the submission threat that Silva poses, she's going to be comfortable there. I don't think she's going to be too worried about getting submitted from bottom position against Silva. She just has to be a little bit cognizant, obviously, of that threat, the leg locks, and if she ends up in a weird position where she shoots a bad takedown, the front chokes, she has to be aware of that. But I think, obviously, Moroz has shown that her guard, she's underrated with that, and she can catch Silva even off her back. And I feel like cardio for Moroz, she has a big advantage. I think grappling, she has an advantage. And I feel like Moroz, she beat Silva before. She, in my opinion, is the faster girl. She throws more volume. Her grappling is overall superior. I think she has the edge in the cardio. We know Moroz is going to keep the pace and fight hard for 3 rounds, whereas I question that for Silva. Moroz has never been finished, whereas Silva has finished all her wins. And Moroz is coming off a loss, but it's to a top 5 fighter in the world. Moroz has done well, beating a lot of similar style girls to Karine. So maybe not similar style, but girls that are finisher girls, like Maria Agapova, Mayra Bueno Silva, these dangerous fighters. Moroz has been able to nullify them and beat them. So I think she's either going to win by decision or even finish in the later rounds. I could see her getting another submission on Silva. I feel like this is a make-or-break fight for Moroz's career. If Moroz loses this, she has zero chance to move up and compete with high-level fighters in the weight, really. Karine Silva, she's still new, fresh in the UFC. She has a more fan-friendly style that's going to get her bigger opportunities. And I expect Moroz to bounce back here, surprise some people, and cast as the underdog. And I think Karine Silva will be back, but I just feel like it's a bigger fight career trajectory-wise for Moroz. And I think Moroz just has some, intangibles, and not even intangibles, just some skills that Karine Silva is going to struggle with. So I'm going to go with Maryna Moroz to make it 2-0 against Karine Silva in this one and get the victory. And moving through the card with the second fight of the night, we got another female fight. This one is in the 125-pound division with Andrea Lee facing Natalia Silva. And Andrea KGB Lee, she's been essentially backed into a corner, and she's fighting for a UFC career here on Saturday night. The veteran, she's been, in my opinion, putting on some of the best performances of her career recently. And honestly, she's been getting the shit end of the stick quite often. I mean, she had a super close... it wasn't really a close fight. I feel like Araujo did win, but Lee got very close to finishing Viviane Araujo in the first round. Then in Lee's last fight, she lost to Macy Barber by split decision in what many people felt like was a robbery of the year candidate. So looking at where Macy Barber is in the division now, clearly Andrea Lee is still high level. The UFC is seeing a 34-year-old fighter on a 2-fight losing streak, though, and they're kind of pitting her against one of the best prospects in female MMA right now, Natalia Silva. and they're looking to kind of vault Silva into that title picture with the win over Andrea Lee here. Andrea Lee, it's a big opportunity because she's a huge underdog, and if she beats Natalia Silva, that's going to be maybe not the ranked win, like top 5 win on paper, but it's a big win for people that know about the sport, and it'll probably get Lee another big-time fight. And Natalia Silva, she's 3-0 so far in the UFC. She looks like a possible future title contender. She dominated Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's proven herself to be a good fighter in the UFC, and then she brutally finished her last 2 victories with head kicks, so she's definitely been impressive. Overall, she's won 9 in a row. She hasn't lost in 6 years, but she is taking a step up in competition here. She's facing a motivated Andrea Lee, and if Silva can get the dominant win over a fighter like Andrea Lee, then it's definitely time for a top 5 opponent next. And when you look at Natalia Silva's style, Taekwondo striker, awesome striker to watch, very fun, very evasive. She has great side-to-side movement. She keeps the distance with her left kick, throws amazing kicks to all parts of the body. She's very fast, fluid. Her last 2 fights, head kicks have ended the night for her opponents. She doesn't have the greatest boxing, I would say, but she's gotten a lot better with her hands, and she's improving with that every time we see her. And she does have very fast hands and power in her hands, so she'll throw kind of blind straight punches sometimes, or hooks and combinations to kind of back girls off that aren't the most technical. The straight punches are getting more technical, but when she kind of throws those hooks kind of to back girls off, it's the power in her hands that allows her to kind of lack that technique, because girls don't want to get hit, man. And but she does throw with her hands down in her chin, kind of in the air. So an educated boxer may be able to do a little bit about that, but it's kind of like that Manon Fiorot style with Silva, where she's moving, kicking, and then when you get close to her, she'll throw heat with the hands. And even if she doesn't have the best boxing or the best boxing defense in the pocket, she can just clinch you too and take you down. So she can mix it up, and I feel like she could put the pressure on Lee. And sometimes when you see Andrea Lee feel like she's in trouble, she makes mistakes. So I could see Silva getting Lee to shoot a bad takedown, getting on top. And Natalia Silva isn't the greatest wrestler, but she looks strong in the clinch, and she does have decent clinch takedowns. She also has good anti-wrestling, and she was able to stuff, all the takedowns of Jasmine Jasudavicius pretty much. In her fight with Teresa Bleda, she did get controlled early in the fight, but she was able to show good toughness. She survived a pretty deep triangle, pretty deep armbar. I will say her submission defense was a little bit suspect in that fight. I mean, I think Andrea Lee's submission offense is suspect too, like when you saw Andrea Lee trying to finish that triangle in her fight with Shevchenko. But I feel like that's maybe the one area so far that I've seen where it's like that's maybe a hole in Silva's game. Is her submission defense looked a little bit whack, but her fight IQ has improved a lot. You could tell that in the past she didn't like getting hit or pressure too much. Like if you watch that Maryna Silva fight, or Maryna Rodrigues, and she kept pulling guard because she does have a good armbar, and I think she relied on that a lot in her earlier career. But obviously now that's kind of in her back pocket. Like maybe Andrea Lee will get on top of her and Silva will catch her in an armbar because she has quite a few of them, but she hasn't gotten one in a while. Cardio-wise, Silva has great cardio to be able to use that style that she does have, and she's very hard to beat. I mean, she's extremely strong. She could take you down, control you, and then she's very hard to find on the feet. She's throwing dangerous kicks and fast punches, so she's a load. But Andrea Lee, she is a great striker in her own right. She's tall, long. She's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage here, and she likes to throw a lot of front kicks to the body, jabs, straight punches. She does attack the body well. And when fighters close the distance, she looks for the check hook. She'll throw some nice lead elbows. Her kicking game outside of the front kicks are on point. She has fast head kicks, leg kicks, and she can be active with her kicks too. And she's mean. Recently, she's become more willing to take some risks on the feet, and I would say she's one of the more athletic and heavy hitters in the division. So there will be a speed advantage for Silva, but I think Lee has the better hands and more power in her punches. but it's just going to be if she can land those shots. For Andrea Lee, she doesn't really maintain her ability and snap on the feet as good either in comparison to Silva. She tends to get looser, not as active, and slow down as fights go longer. And she is very strong. I imagine trying to get in the clinch, slow Silva down is going to be a big part of her game plan in this fight. She has good knees, elbows in the clinch, and pretty good judo. Her last fight, her wrestling looked better than ever. I mean, she was timing body locks on Maycee Barber. Her top control was on point. I would say that was probably the best Andrea Lee's wrestling has ever looked. And if she could replicate that, get in a top position, she's probably going to have an advantage here. She is aggressive. She has good ground and pound. She looks for submissions. And the majority of her fights that she's lost is through being out-wrestled, out-grappled. Lee does have questionable takedown defense. She isn't really great off her back. But I don't think Natalia was really shown that ability or want to take down opponents like that. So Lee's likely going to have the striking fight that she wants. But I feel like her cardio isn't that great. I think she is going to slow down. And Silva, I think the fight could be closer than people expect because Andrea Lee is by far the best striker that Silva's faced in the UFC. But I still think Silva with her cardio and her striking is going to get it done. She has the edge on the feet with her speed and her volume and the kicks. Lee early on, I feel like maybe has a chance to hurt Silva with a punch, but she can't damage her. I think she's just going to end up getting outworked. And her wrestling was effective in her last fight, but I think that Silva's going to be a little bit more ready for the wrestling than Barber was. We hadn't really seen Andrea Lee bring that out in her game in a while. And I feel like even though the girls that Silva has been beating recently have been kind of punching bags, I do think she's the real deal. I feel like it's going to be a tougher fight that she's been getting in recently. I don't see her going out there and blitzing Andrea Lee in the first round. If she does, then, man, we could be seeing a future UFC champion. But I'm going to say Silva wins this one via decision. I think early on it'll be fairly competitive, and I think Silva may be a little bit less aggressive than we're used to seeing her. But I think as the fight goes on, we'll see Lee, her age kind of show. She's getting up there, 34 years old, and I think she'll kind of slow down, and Natalia Silva will take over and win the fight. So give me Natalia Silva to win via decision. And up next year, we got a fight that I'm intrigued by, I'm excited for, because I do jiu-jitsu and I'm a fan of grappling, but from a pick perspective, from a betting perspective, it's kind of hard for me. I've really kind of struggled with a lot of GM3 fights. I haven't been the best at picking his fights. So I really don't have a ton to say about this matchup, but these guys, they have been kind of circling each other for a while because GM3, he is one of the most experienced fighters on the roster for one, and through that experience, being 10-8 in the UFC and having 51 fights, he's kind of proven himself to be one of the best grapplers around, and he has the most submission wins in the history of the middleweight division. Andre Petroski is a guy that's kind of made a claim that he's the best grappler in the middleweight division, and he's called out all the grapplers. Like, he fought Nick Maximoff, and they had kind of a back and forth about the grappling. Then his last fight, he fought Wellington Turman, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Brazil, and called out Bo Nickel. He's called out GM3, and now he's getting what he wants. He's 4-0 in the UFC with 3 finishes, and he's been calling out GM3. GM3 is kind of that ultimate gatekeeper kind of guy, and the UFC granted his wish, and they've given him, this matchup here. When you're looking at it, stylistically, there's path to victory for both guys because Andre Petroski is the much more explosive guy, much faster. Early in the fight, he's going to be a danger to GM3 on the feet because he's powerful. We know GM3 is not really that explosive, and his chin and durability are waning. So even though Petroski isn't a great striker, if you can land a big power overhand, big punch on GM3, he could put him lights out. But as the fight goes on, Petroski really isn't that technical of a striker. GM3 is not the greatest striker either, but he's probably a little bit better. He maintains his energy, and I do think that those body kicks from GM3 from the southpaw stance could start to wear on Petroski if we see him slow down. As far as the grappling goes, I feel like Petroski is a significantly better wrestler. He's much physically stronger, and I think he has the grappling to get on top. And stay safe. So I do feel like Petroski is probably going to win the fight. It's just his cardio is the question mark, and GM3 is a crafty guy. So, I mean, if Petroski gets tired enough where GM3 could body kick him and finish him via TKO or get him to create some sloppy grappling exchange, then he could get the finish. But I'm still going to lean towards Petroski. I think he's going to win a decision, but probably a fight for me, at least, that I'm passing on. I know some people always like taking that stab on GM3 at dog odds, and I understand it, but I'm going to go to the Petroski side here, and I'm going to say that he maybe is explosive early, gets a knockdown, or is effective with the striking, and then settles in and gets a couple takedowns, avoids getting swept or submitted, and wins that fight. And for this next fight, we got the first of the two tough finale fights. This one has a little bit of steam to it, man. I mean, both these guys don't like each other, Brad Katona and Cody Gibson. And Gibson is promising a knockout, and Katona is someone that, is a weird guy, so he didn't really show much emotion. But you could tell that they are in a bit of a grudge match here, and it's two veterans. Obviously, they did that veterans versus prospects thing where the veterans kind of smoke through all the prospects, and there's no prospects left. The two tough finales are both veteran matchups. So Brad Katona, he's looking to become the first man ever to win two Ultimate Fighters. And Cody Gibson, he was in the UFC back in the day. He even fought Aljo before, and he's trying to work his way back into the company. And stylistically, when you look at how these two guys fight, I think it's going to be pretty obvious what both their game plans are going to be. Cody Gibson, he's one of the biggest bantamweights that I've seen before. I mean, the guy's huge. He's like 5'10", 5'11", very rangy guy, and he manipulates distance and can control range really well. Like we saw him land that flying knee victory on the Ultimate Fighter, and he's really good with his distance striking, straight punches, his jab. He does a really good job pulling fighters into his shots, and he's a dangerous guy on the feet because of his length and his technical ability from the outside. But his wrestling is good, but it's just that's what's been his issue throughout his career. He's had guys that have been able to get under him, take him down, hold him against the cage, nullify him, and even submit him a couple times and beat him that way. So Gibson, even though he has a good wrestling background in his own right, he struggles against guys that can out-wrestle him. So Brad Katona, he kind of brings that style where he's a short, compact guy. He'll switch stance and kind of uses his striking to disguise his entries, and then wants to push you against the cage and hold you against the fence. And I wouldn't even say he has great wrestling, but he has really good cage control, really good head positioning, and kind of just hold you there, chip away with knees, elbows, get you tired, and then rinse and repeat, man, burn the clock and win by decision. He's not really the most entertaining fighter, but he's low risk and doesn't have a high likelihood of being finished or putting himself in super danger. And he wins a lot of minutes, so he can go out there and get decision victories. He's done really well since leaving the UFC. He's gone over to Brave. He's become the champion for them and beaten some pretty high-level guys. He's the younger guy. I feel like stylistically, unless Gibson can just catch him and knock him out early, I think Katona's probably going to end up wearing him down and beating him by decision in kind of a lackluster fight where he has a lot of cage control. Gibson, I've just seen him lose that type of fight too often, especially when it's like 1-1 going in the third. I have a little bit more faith, honestly, in Katona digging it out than I do in Gibson. So that's why I'm going to go with Brad Katona to win this one via decision. I just think he's going to have a little bit more cage control time, a little bit better cardio, and I feel like he's going to nullify Gibson a little bit. Gibson is the better fighter to me, but I think Katona, with the rules of MMA, is going to be able to kind of stymie him and win that decision. And now we got the second of the two tough finale fights. This one is going with Kurt Holobaugh versus Austin Hubbard in the 155-pound division. And I really like this fight. Kurt Holobaugh is a guy that I've kind of been a fan of. I liked his fighting style when he came into the UFC for that second stint. Like when he fought Raoni Barcelos, he was beating Raoni Barcelos 2-0 before he got knocked out in the third round. Then he fought Shane Burgos. He dropped him early and then got submitted. Then Thiago Moises, even that fight was fairly competitive. So I feel like he has been in fun fights and he's, you know, done well. He's just been in there with killers, man. And he's 0-4 in the UFC so far. So that's something that you have to be a little bit weary of. I mean, some of these guys that are in the UFC for like a long time, they never win, like 0-3, 0-4. It could turn into a mental thing where maybe that's the reason why they aren't winning in the UFC. But hopefully Holobaugh, you know, being on the Ultimate Fighter, fighting for the UFC 4 times now, he's likely going to have nothing to lose, man. I mean, the guy knows he has to go out there and 36 years old, 0-4 in the UFC, just go out there and go for it, man. Go for the win, and if you get that finish, you're you know, guaranteed a contract and you're an Ultimate Fighter champion. So that's something that you're going to be able to put on your mantle forever. And in his way, though, it's going to be Austin Hubbard, who went 3-4 in his UFC run the first time he fought in the UFC. And Hubbard, I would say he hasn't fought nearly as good of guys that Kurt Holobaugh's fought. And I feel like he is someone that isn't quite as fun to watch. He has a more point fighting style, and I think that he can beat probably more guys in the UFC, but Holobaugh is probably more fun to watch. So this particular matchup, though, when you look at how these two guys fight, it's going to be really fun. And I do think that Kurt Holobaugh has the edge because Austin Hubbard, to me, he's a low-volume guy. One thing I'm a little bit weary of is the shots up the middle he does come with, the front knees. I think the uppercuts will be there in this fight for Hubbard if he does look for them. And just strikes up the middle because Kurt Holobaugh is always coming straight forward. But Hubbard has issues with pressure fighters with heavy hands, in my opinion. And Kurt Holobaugh, his last fight, he looked great, man. I mean, the guy was putting his combinations together. He is really like a technical brawler where he uses the jab to get inside, then you'll rip hooks to the body, come up to the head. He has pretty good straight punches, and he has big power in his hands. So I think that the volume, the power, and the pressure is going to be a lot for Hubbard to deal with on the feet. And Hubbard has okay wrestling. I mean, maybe he'll be able to take Holobaugh down a couple times, but Holobaugh has really good wrestling himself, underrated wrestling, and I think he could stuff a majority of the shots. I also believe that he can get back up to his feet or reverse when he's taken down. I don't think Hubbard has as good at grappling as Holobaugh does. I think he just has probably the better offensive wrestling. And as far as cardio goes, I would maybe lean towards Hubbard there, but Holobaugh's a dog too. I mean, the guy doesn't really get tired. He's going to push the pace. He's someone that's kill or be killed type of style. And I just feel like Kurt Holobaugh is going to do more during the fight. I think he's going to be the more damaging fighter, and I see him getting the victory here. I don't know if it's going to be a finish in the later rounds or a decision. Hubbard's a guy that's really hard to get out of there. So if I had to give a prediction, I would say Holobaugh by decision, but I like, his style here. He looked really good against Jason Knight. I think the pressure, the combination punching is going to be effective here. I think his power is going to get to Hubbard a little bit, and I think Hubbard isn't going to land nearly as many shots unless he can hurt Holobaugh a couple times or be effective holding him and controlling him. I think Holobaugh is just going to beat him down, man. So give me Holobaugh to get this one done, get his first UFC victory, and become the Ultimate Fighter winner. And up next here, we got a middleweight fight between Gregory Rodrigues and Denis Tiuliulin. Gregory Rodrigues, he's built a name and fan base through his fighting in the cage, his fighting style, and he's one of the better-known non-ranked middleweights in the UFC. He's had entertaining come-from-behind wins, and he's always down to go to war. And this is a pivotal spot in his career, though. He's looking to bounce back after an upset knockout loss. He was rising up in the weight class, and he was going to fight Brad Tavares in that fight, but Tavares pulled out. He ended up fighting a UFC newcomer in Bruno Ferreira in a fight that he really shouldn't have lost. Ended up getting knocked out by having a bad game plan. And he can't afford to have another one of those outcomes happen here as a big favorite. If he does that, then I think his spot in the UFC is a little precarious. And I also think that his chances of getting into that ranked, talks again are probably slim to none. But Denis Tiuliulin, his opponent, he's had an up and down start to his UFC career. He's had 2 fights that he's lost via rear naked choke, and he's had 1 fight he won via knockout. These fighters have kind of been circling each other for a while now. They were supposed to fight a couple months ago. Tiuliulin withdrew, so hopefully he's ready to go here. I don't know why he had to withdraw, but Tiuliulin needs a win, man. I mean, he has his back against the wall here. Can't afford to go 1-3 in the UFC. And we look at Tiuliulin's style. He's a pressure fighter. He's a good boxer. He has fluid, slick, clean hands. Nice jab, good straight punches. He attacks the body. He throws pretty good combinations. He has some of the better boxing in the weight class, and he'll throw some nice elbows, knees. He'll sometimes work body kicks. He has nice leg kicks, but he's fairly one-dimensional. He tries to make it a war and uses boxing pretty much, and he's not really the best defensively either. But Tiuliulin's wrestling is what costs him in almost all his fights. He has bad grappling, bad wrestling. He's been submitted a few times. He's been held on the ground, and that's going to be the easiest path to victory for Gregory Rodrigues, is taking him down. When you look at Gregory Rodrigues, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's going to be the faster, more powerful, and explosive fighter in this fight, the more well-rounded striker. He throws hard 3-2s, 2-3s. All his punches are heavy. He has a nice uppercut. He has good hand speed, heavy kicks, and he's a good brawler. I mean, he's someone that we've seen him get in these exchanges, get hurt and come back, like against Chidian Jakawani, against Jun Young Park. But he's not that durable, man. I mean, the guy's dangerous, but he's fallen on his sword and been knocked out a couple times. He's been hurt in other fights. And you have to knock him out cold to get him out of there, but there is going to be a time when he's going to have to stop brawling and start fighting smarter. His career is going to end quick. And Gregory Rodrigues, he's a world champion in jiu-jitsu, and you would never really know that. A lot of his early wins came on the ground, and he has decent wrestling, but he just doesn't use it in his fights enough. I do anticipate he could take down Tiuliulin if he wants to, and if he could take him down, I think he could finish him on the ground really easily. It's just going to be up to whether he wants to do that. But I'm going to say RoboCop bounces back here, wins first round submission. If it becomes a brawl, then maybe Tiuliulin could get something in there and get the finish. But I feel like Rodrigues, with his not his career on the line necessarily, but huge fight for him here. He can't afford to lose. I think he finally will fight smart and use that grappling. But man, I mean, Rodrigues to me is a scary guy to parlay, a scary guy to bet straight or predict to win when he's a huge underdog, because he, fights sometimes in these 50-50 fights when he doesn't need to. So hopefully we see smart fight IQ from Rodrigues, and I'll predict him to win via first-round submission. And closing out the prelims here, we got the return of Chris Weidman. He's going to be taking on Brad Tavares. And after one of the nastiest injuries in UFC history, Weidman is making what many would call a miraculous return to competition. His leg was broken severely, and this is his first fight in almost 2.5 years. At his age, with the damage he's taken, it's difficult to imagine he comes back the same. He was already fading before the injury, so how he's going to look on Saturday is really question mark. I will say physically, Weidman looks good, in shape on his IG. I watched his Polaris grappling fight. He looked like he was in shape, strong in that fight. And you can never underestimate the heart of a champion, man. The fact that Weidman has done the work to come back, you have to respect that regardless of the outcome. Brad Tavares, just like Weidman, he's a grizzled veteran, man. Tavares has actually been in the UFC longer than Chris Weidman. He made his debut in the UFC in 2010. He was one of the first prospects post-Randy Couture to carry that flag for Extreme Couture, which has become arguably the best gym in martial arts today. And Tavares hasn't reached the heights Chris Weidman has, but he's still 14-8 in 22 UFC fights. He's put in work. His last match against Bruno Silva, he was knocked out, and it was arguably an early stoppage, so it wasn't a devastating finish, but the fight was only a little less than 4 months ago, and Tavares sustained a lot of damage, so that is something to think about. But Tavares has lost 2 fights in a row. It's been over 3 years since he's gotten a win in the UFC, and Saturday night he's a big favorite, and it's a good chance for him to get his hand raised again. When you look at Brad Tavares' style, he's a pretty basic fighter. On the feet, he likes to throw the jabs, the leg kicks, and fast straight jabs. He has good timing with the low kicks. You'll mix in some front kicks up the middle. Sometimes you'll throw some big right hooks or right crosses, but most of the time he's just playing that long game, touching from the outside, scoring points. In the pocket, he will slip and rip, but I doubt Weidman is going to play that game with him. And Tavares may even be hesitant to exchange in the pocket too after getting knocked out, exchanging with Bruno Silva. And in Tavares' entire UFC career, and I think this is a reason why the UFC pinned Weidman against him, and it's a good matchup, is he only has 2 finishes in his whole career. He's really tough. He keeps a high guard. He doesn't move his head, and he's there to be hit. And he has a strong chin, but he's also been put out 4 times, including in his last fight. The damage is starting to add up. He's getting dropped more often. He's getting cut open. 2 out of his last 3 fights, he's had to fight through a crimson mask. And I feel like, him only having 2 finishes in his entire UFC career is kind of an indicator that he doesn't have that power to knock Weidman out. I mean, unless Weidman's leg is so compromised that a couple leg kicks is going to end it, it's probably going to, end up going long. And Tavares does come in shape. He brings the volume. But in this fight, you know what Tavares has to be ready for, and that's the stuff, the takedowns. He has 80% takedown defense, and all those guys at Extreme Couture usually are very difficult to take down. And Tavares had some pretty good showings against Antonio Carlos Jr. and Omar Akhmedov where he defended a lot of takedowns, but Akhmedov still took him down 5 times. And Chris Weidman is, my opinion, by far the best wrestler-grappler combination that Tavares has ever fought. I mean, Yoel Romero is really the only high-level wrestler that Tavares has faced in his UFC run, and Yoel took Tavares down 7 times. Brad Tavares has good takedown defense, good balance, but I do think Weidman with his size, his chain wrestling, could hold Tavares against the cage, could get him down a few times, and we're going to have to see how that game plays out. But when you look at Chris Weidman, southpaw, he has one of the best single legs in MMA history, and on top of the single leg, he could chain wrestle. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a huge guy for 185, and he's a load to deal with. I mean, that's why he became world champion. His Achilles heel in his later career has been his chin. He's been knocked out brutally a few times. He's suffered multiple knockout losses in a row. And to compound that, then he suffered one of the worst leg breaks in UFC history as well. So all that makes Weidman's durability an extreme question mark, red flag. Luckily for Weidman, though, he's in there, like I said, with a soft puncher. I think the leg kicks are what Weidman really has to be more aware of. On the feet, I would say Weidman is the more mobile of the two. He's the much heavier hitter, and he likes to use evasive footwork, feints, throw the jab, and he has power kicks if he comes back with the same kind of kicking game that he used to. He has a big right hand with heat, and I feel like if someone's going to knock someone out with punches, or even knock someone out in general, I think the likelihood is higher for on the Weidman side. But Weidman's going to come back, and he's going to grapple. I mean, I watched him grapple Pelorus 23 earlier this year, and he looked decent enough. It's really kind of hard to say. But I think if he comes back, even 50% of his former self, and I'm talking about the self that we saw fight Omar Akhmedov, he could win this fight. I mean, I just don't, like, Brad Tavares, to me, it's like, he doesn't necessarily do anything phenomenal. Like, the guy doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. He doesn't have power. He doesn't have the greatest striking. He doesn't have the greatest durability. He doesn't have the greatest cardio. He does have good output, good leg kicks, which are going to be something that Weidman has to be aware of. But, man, I mean, if you're giving anyone to Weidman to come back and get the victory, I think Tavares is a great guy to give him, man. I think Weidman is undefeated in decisions. And, I mean, I think I'm going to walk the lonely road on this one. I don't think many people are going to be going with me, but I'm going to pick Chris Weidman to win this one via decision. I think he's going to be able to get his grappling going, hold him against the cage, take him down a few times. I think the striking is going to be a lot more competitive than people think. I think he could bust Tavares up and, make him bloody. And I feel like this is a huge pivotal fight for Weidman, not only, as a fighter, but as a man. I think he wants to come back, get the win, and kind of prove something to the world, prove something to himself. And another thing is, look at the main event. Aljo Sterling, that guy, they've been best friends for a long time. Not best friends, I don't know that, but they've been, really close training partners. And he has the whole crew there with him, man, his whole team. It's going to be good vibes, nostalgia going. And give me Chris Weidman. I mean, maybe it's going to look like a terrible pick, and Tavares is going to get his first knockout win since 2015, or his second one since 2010, and beat Chris Weidman. But man, I feel like Chris Weidman at the numbers that he's at can get the win here. So I'm going with Chris Weidman. I know it's kind of a crazy pick, but give me Chris Weidman to win this fight via decision. Man, I love this fight right here, man. Two of the, heaviest hitters and, guys with the best chins in the bantamweight division. This is going to be a banger and pivotal fight for both guys. I think it changes the career trajectory of both guys. Maybe Pedro Munhoz a little more just because Cheeto has name value at this point. He has a fan base and he could recover quicker from losses, I believe. He also has, a higher upside of finishing in his fights, it seems like. But Pedro Munhoz, I mean, if he wins this fight, he's going to be right back in position for another, top 5 opponent. And he's getting up there like 36, 37 years old. So this is it for him, man. He has to win this one. Cheeto coming off that bad loss to Corey Sandhagen. So if he loses 2 in a row, that's really going to drop his stock. But I do think he could come back from that. Pedro, he's coming off that big win where he snapped the winning streak of Chris Gutierrez and looked really good there. Pretty dominant victory for him. And, man, I mean, this is a hard fight for me to pick. I'm really struggling with this one. I don't have a good read, so I'm not going to give you guys like an in-depth breakdown or anything just because I feel like other people that have stronger opinion on this fight or are very confident, maybe you should listen to their advice a little bit more than mine on this particular fight. But, man, I mean, Cheeto, he's hard for me to pick. He's just such a slow starter. This is a 3-round fight. If his other 3 fights were 3-round fights, he would have lost all 3 of them. Pedro Munhoz stays active on the pressure. He throws big hooks. He throws heavy leg kicks. His chin is made of steel. I don't think you can depend on starting slow and then hurting Pedro, dropping him, and using big moments or a late finish to win the fight, man. You're going to have to up that volume and be active and match Pedro and beat him in 2 out of 3 rounds. I don't see him knocking Pedro Munhoz out. I see some people taking the shots on that this week, but, man, I mean, Pedro Munhoz, have we ever even seen him dropped? Like, the guy is has one of the best chins I've ever seen. I mean, you can hit him right on the button and he just eats it. Like, him and Cheeto have that innate ability to do that, man. It's just incredible. So I don't think that's necessarily a viable game plan. I feel like Cheeto has to be a lot more active on the outside with his offense. He has to really try to match the volume of Pedro, try to stop Pedro from chopping his legs and getting inside and spamming these body head combinations, because if he doesn't do that, Cheeto's gonna be in trouble, man. I mean, Pedro's gonna use the jab. He's gotten a lot better at using his jab to skip in a range without getting hit and then landing his shots on the inside and being active and then getting out. And if Cheeto can't match that activity, I just don't see him winning this fight. I don't see much grappling from either guy. Like, Pedro is the better grappler by far, but neither guy's a wrestler. I don't think either guy's going to try to take one of them down. I know, like, Cheeto's like a fan favorite. Everyone likes Cheeto. Everyone picks Cheeto, and he's the favorite in this fight, I think, because of the age and also because of his name value and recognition at this point. But I'm going to pick Pedro Munhoz. I just feel safer. I think I know what I'm going to get from Pedro. He's going to bring the volume, the pressure. He's going to throw a lot more than Cheeto. And it's hard for me to rely on a knockout or multiple times of Pedro Munhoz getting rocked from Cheeto, knowing his chin historically being incredible. So I feel like Cheeto might lose 2 fights in a row here unless we see him finally, which we haven't seen him do. I mean, maybe because he was winning the fights that he's starting slow, he felt no need to fix that, and now we're going to see him come in here like a different animal. But it's hard for me to say that. I mean, he's older. He's had so many fights in this point in the UFC at a high level that's just who he is, I feel like. And I think Pedro Munhoz is probably going to be able to squeak this one, win 29-28. Maybe it'll be controversial, but I'm going to say Pedro Munhoz gets the win here. Man, I'm really looking forward to this fight. This is a great fight. I'm glad Blackshear, jumping in on short notice here, is getting this main card shine. And he's taking on kind of the first guy from Team O'Malley, Team MMA Lab, to kick it off on this card in Mario Bautista. Bautista, he's been a longtime teammate of Sean O'Malley, and he's an impressive prospect in his own right. In the UFC, he's 6-2. He's won 4 fights in a row. And he hasn't just been winning, he's been running through guys. His last 3 fights, he's ended all of them in the first round. And he's in a huge spot here. This is his first time fighting on a pay-per-view main card. He was expecting to fight former UFC champion Cody Garbrandt, which would have been a huge win for him. But Garbrandt had to withdraw, and now he's fighting Blackshear. And he can't afford a letdown spot because I think he's fighting a lesser-known name, but a harder opponent in Blackshear. Blackshear, I mean, he's proven he's about that life, man. I mean, the guy's taking on his second opponent in 7 days. And we just watched Blackshear become the third man to hit a twister in the UFC on Saturday. Now he's going to become the first man to fight twice in 7 days for the UFC in the modern era. Is going to join Lupe Godinez as the only 2 fighters to achieve that. And he's on a 2-fight win streak. He had, the close loss to Farid Basharat, and then he had a decision that went to a draw with Yusuf Zalal. So I think he's definitely a live underdog in this fight. I see a lot of people totally discounting him, talking about he's on short notice. Like, man, he's not on short notice. Like, come on now, guys. Like, he does have 2 weight cuts. That's something you have to be, a little bit aware of. But the guy's not going to get out of shape. He just fought 7 days ago for 3 minutes. The guy's still going to be sharp. He just had a training camp. So I'm not buying all that BS like, he's on short notice. He's going to be sharp as ever. It's just, will the 2 weight cuts in 7 days affect him? Or will he be able to, do that and still compete to his optimum level, or at least the same level that we saw him fight at last week? I don't think it's going to be like, he's gassing out because he didn't have a training camp. I mean, like, man, the guy just had a training camp. So I don't think that's really an issue. And, when you look at Blackshear, the guy's underrated. He's a black belt. He has nice speed on the feet. He's going to be significantly faster with his hands, in my opinion, than Bautista. Mario Bautista is a guy that I've actually done really well, betting and predicting his fights, making some money on him, and I feel like I have a good read on his style. And on the feet, he is very athletic, mobile, and he's going to be the bigger, longer guy. And he doesn't really have the best, kind of like his offense isn't as good as Blackshear. Like, it's not as high volume. It doesn't come as often, but he's one of these guys that he fights and blitzes. Like, he's moves around on the outside, then you'll blitz in with the body head punch combination that has a lot of kind of sting to it. Then you'll come in with a flying knee or some big kicks, and he's a dynamic guy that's gunning for putting damage on you. And then once you start to slow down and wear down, you'll start to get in your face more and make it kind of an ugly fight. Uses cardio and really start to take you out if it's more of a striking battle. But, you look at his fights like with guys like Jay Perrin, and that was a competitive fight, and we saw Jay Perrin kind of get exposed in the UFC. We've seen him get knocked out by Trevin Jones. So even though he's on this 4-fight win streak and a lot of people want to announce him as like the next up-and-coming guy, the guys that he's been beating, these guys are probably not UFC level. Like, Blackshear has been fighting way better opponents, and I think he's a significant step up from, like, these Guido Canettis, these Benito Lopez that didn't fight for, like, 4 years. Like, all these guys that Brian Kelleher, who had a lot of major injuries. Like, these guys Bautista's is beating recently have not been cream of the crop fighters, man. So I think Blackshear is extremely live. Like, on the feet, I feel like he's going to be significantly faster with the hands. And if he could pressure and not let Bautista have that room to explode in with those wild strikes, I think he can get the better of the striking exchanges on the feet. And I feel like in terms of the wrestling, I think Blackshear could take Bautista down. I mean, we saw Jay Perrin take him down, and no one really seen control Bautista, and Bautista thrives when he can get on top and use his size, and he can get a lot of finishes. He's very aggressive from that top position, and his wrestling is decent, but I feel like he's going to struggle to take down Blackshear too. I mean, he may be able to control him against the fence, and if Blackshear does start to get tired and Bautista can get on top of him, we've seen Blackshear show some deficiencies from that bottom position and get held down. But I feel like Blackshear, the line should be closer, man. I think Blackshear is a very live underdog. His cardio's on point. I think he has the better grappling, the better wrestling. He's the smaller guy. Maybe the wrestling is on Bautista's side, but I think it's very competitive. And cardio-wise, I think both these guys have good enough cardio. I think they kind of both slow down a little bit, but I think it's going to be kind of equal in that aspect. So I just feel like Blackshear is the better fighter, man. I think he's going to show that. I think a lot of people are kind of gassed up off some of Bautista's recent victories, but I think that it's going to be kind of shown that he was beating a low level of opponent, and now that he's stepping out fighting a guy like Blackshear, or I think could potentially get ranked. He's younger. He's young and getting better. I think that unless that weight cut really affects him, I see him getting the job done here by being the better boxer, the faster hands, pressuring forward, maybe getting a takedown or two, and just being the little bit more active guy over 15 minutes here. I like the over as well. I think that Bautista's, made a lot of headlines with the finishes recently, so maybe they'll open the over-under 1.5 at a plus money. And if they do that, I think that would be a very good bet as well. But give me Blackshear here via decision to pull the upset, get 2 wins in 7 days, and kind of show that he may be a future top 15 fighter in the bantamweight weight class. And we got Magny taking on Ian Garry here. And short notice fight. Ian Garry was supposed to fight Jeff Neal, and Jeff Neal ended up having to pull out. So in steps Magny, and this was the guy that Ian Garry originally called out, and then Magny accepted the call out and called out Ian Garry on the mic. So both these guys have been in the octagon asking to fight each other, and they both got their wish. So it's a big fight for both guys. I mean, obviously when you see Magny, anytime someone beats Magny, I mean, they're a top 5 guy. I mean, that's kind of how it works. It seems like recently Magny's definitely started to slow down. Like he, in my opinion, back in the day would have dominated a guy like Phil Rowe. He went to split decision. He would have dominated a guy like Max Griffin and went to split decision. So he's still being able to beat these guys that he's always historically beaten, but the fights are becoming closer and closer, and that does, to me, signify Magny slowing down a little bit. And he still is a guy, though, that when you have Magny across from you and you could beat him, then you become stamped as one of the best in the world. And Ian Garry, 25 years old, former Cage Warriors champion, and kind of brings that same brashness that you see from a lot of these UK guys where they're talking a lot of shit and they're trying to build themselves up in the media. And you see Ian Garry talk about how, which I think is kind of like delusional, but I mean, you got to talk yourself up, I guess. But he said like he's the only reason why people are going to wake up to watch this card. He's the biggest star on the card and all that. But, man, I mean, you got to say what you got to say to build yourself up, right? But Ian Garry is a big deal. He does have fans, and, he's someone that's extremely talented. So you kind of got to take away any disdain you have for his trash talk or his cockiness when you're breaking him down away and just look at the skills. But, when you're looking at how these two guys match up in the line, I feel like it's kind of a dog or pass, but I wouldn't be interested in betting Magny on short notice when I think he's kind of slowing down. If this fight were a couple years ago, I think Magny would be a great underdog pick, but now I feel like he's not going to be quite as good as he used to be, and I still think he has some things that could pose issues to Garry. Like, Ian Garry, to me, is an amazing striker. Like, the guy has great ability to strike off the back foot. He has great feints. He pulls guys into shots. He does a great job creating angles, not getting stuck against the cage. And when he does end up on the cage, he can land, make you miss, and get off. His head kick is really what you have to look out for. I believe he has like 6 or 7 knockouts, and all but one of them have came from the head kick. So that head kick is really his money shot. His hands, I don't think, have necessarily crazy knockout power, but he can land clean. He's very fast, sharp, and he just has great footwork. He's long, and he can kind of beat guys up from a distance and really keep them at bay, out-volume them. And if they get wild and you don't see that head kick coming, he can land it and knock them out and send them home, earlier than they expected. And Ian Garry is also a good grappler. Like, he's strong in the clinch. He can hit takedowns. He seems like he has a good top game. And in this fight, maybe a submission bet on Garry is a decent play because the odds are going to be good, and the majority of Magny's losses are via submission. Ian Garry does train with those Kill Cliff guys, and you look at a lot of those Kill Cliff guys, they've been able to beat Magny, and they've been able to beat him in a similar fashion. They've all kind of submitted him as well. So I feel like Ian Garry may have had a camp here where we're going to see him use a lot more wrestling and tried to submit Neil. Actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking about it, it's like he didn't really have a camp for Neil Magny. He had a camp for Jeff Neal. So I'm actually not honestly sure about that. But I think that could be a path to victory, him actually submitting Neil Magny with a front choke or some sort of submission. We haven't really seen too much of Ian Garry's grappling game, but could come show itself here. But Ian Garry's had bad moments. Like, you've seen him get dropped against Kenan Song. We've seen where he got controlled in certain fights. He got taken down in certain fights against low-level guys that Neil Magny is a way better wrestler than, way better control fighter than. So if Neil can actually get the pressure going, get Ian against the cage, start holding him against the cage, start taking his back, we could see, Ian Garry on upset alert. But I just feel like I said, I think Neil Magny, his cardio is even going from what I've seen. I think his cardio used to be a cardio machine, and he still is, but I think he's even getting tired in fights. I feel like he isn't quite as fast. His wrestling and grappling isn't quite as sharp as it used to be. And I just feel like Ian Garry is a very skilled guy. I think he's someone that could potentially work his way into a title picture with the right matchups and with the right development. So I think he's going to be able to get past the Neil Magny hump. It's just at that line, can you justify it after seeing some of Ian Garry's performances were shaky against opponents that are not even close to Neil Magny's level? I don't really think so. So that's why I said it's a dog or pass, but also not interested in Neil Magny just because of what I've seen from his recent performances. So give me Ian Garry, and I'll say he actually wins via second round submission. You'll drop him and submit him. But yeah, I think this is kind of a pass for me. And in the co-main event, we got the first of our 2 title fights in the card, with Weili Zhang defending her title against Amanda Lemos in a fight that I think is a little bit being underestimated by fans. I think it's going to be a good fight. Amanda Lemos is one of the most dangerous girls in the entire weight class. I mean, when you look at it from a finishing perspective, she has one-punch knockout power, and she has the ability to catch submissions in the blink of an eye. So that's something that you always have to be really aware of. But Weili Zhang, she brings in all the championship level experience. She brings in more cardio, more well-rounded skills, and I think an overall better MMA game. It's just Amanda Lemos brings that ability to finish the fight in one moment that makes her dangerous, especially early in the fight. So especially early, I think Weili has to be very careful, but I believe that as the fight goes on, it's going to be swinging more and more towards Zhang's favor, even though I don't think Zhang has the greatest cardio either. I think her cardio is a little bit overrated. I think it's going to be a lot better than Lemos's, but how I see this fight kind of playing out, when you look at Amanda Lemos early in the fight, she's going to be very live, I feel, because Weili Zhang, she doesn't have the greatest ability to close that distance. She could be a little bit robotic, and she's gotten a lot smarter in terms of she makes fighters come to her a lot more. She's moving a lot more. She's not necessarily being the bull as much as she did like in her first 2 Rose fights on the feet. And that's really helped her kind of not get hit quite as often. But early in the fight, Amanda Lemos is kind of a sniper. She has that Gibson Figueiredo style where she has the stance, wide stance, kind of like the rock star kind of stance, and then she's looking for that rear cross right down the middle. She has fast kicks, and she's just extremely dangerous. I mean, she could touch Weili Zhang on the chin early and get her out of there. She could land a kick early and get her out of there. We've seen Weili Zhang get knocked out in the first round before. We've seen her get touched quite a bit in a lot of fights, but I think Amanda Lemos doesn't really like getting pressured long term. I mean, if she can't find that shot and girls can get in on her, land on her, she's not the most defensively responsible either. Her defense is kind of her offense on the feet, and as the fight goes on, she becomes less accurate, less clean, and fast with her one-shot attacks, less powerful, and that's where Weili could really start to be more aggressive, take more risks on the feet, get on the inside more, and show her full striking arsenal where she can really beat up on Lemos on the inside just by going up-down with the striking, higher volume. And then the other big advantage that Weili has is in the wrestling. the grappling early on, Lemos is a very proficient grappler, and she's going to be live to maybe get a submission. So I think Weili early has to be very careful and wary and respect Lemos, but I think after that first round and a half, she could start to open up a little bit more. She could start to hit some takedowns, and we're going to start to see, in my opinion, Lemos really start to get tired and willed. I mean, we've seen her in there. She did fight Marlon Rodriguez, but most of the opponents that she's fought haven't been this championship caliber. They've been kind of the bottom end of the top 15, and she struggled with some of those girls too, like Michelle Waterson won the first round against her, took her down, was controlling her. The fight with Angela Hill was a split that a lot of people thought that Angela Hill should have won, and she was gassing out in that third round. So I just feel like Weili is too much of a champion. She's too smart to get caught early by this explosive girl, and I feel like long term she's the significantly better fighter. It's just Lemos is dangerous early. She's athletic and aggressive, and she brings that finishing ability. But I feel like Weili is going to navigate through that, and I see her getting a finish either second, third, fourth round. I don't think Weili Zhang's cardio holds up the greatest, but I think it's going to look good because Amanda Lemos is a gasser. So I think that against a girl that gasses out, Weili could maintain the cardio and beat the brakes off of her. So I'm going to say Weili wins via third or fourth round KO TKO. And in the main event here, we got Aljamain Sterling taking on Sean O'Malley. Fight that is really contentious. It's kind of crazy, man. Like, literally, I see so many people betting on O'Malley, taking the shot on O'Malley. It's like, I picked O'Malley to beat Petr his last fight, in a fight that was a much more stylistically favorable fight for him, and everyone was picking against him and shitting on Sean O'Malley. There was a few guys, obviously, on my side with the O'Malley pick, but almost everyone was like, no way, Petr Yan's going to destroy him. And now he's, getting a tougher stylistic matchup, and everyone's picking him. And it's like he was a bigger underdog when he fought Petr Yan. So it's like, to me, that's kind of, it's puzzling. I feel like, I don't know. I don't really get that, honestly, because, man, I mean, when you're looking at the matchup, it's pretty obvious. And you even see Sean O'Malley saying in his coaches, and I don't think that's a very confident sounding thing to say. Like when they're saying, it's either going to be me knocking him out or unless he grabs me. Like, why don't you say I could get back up to my feet and, survive the grappling, or I'll grapple him, defend the takedowns, and beat him by decision and beat him everywhere. Like you're saying, he's either going to get his lights knocked out or he's going to grapple fuck me and submit me or beat me. It's like, to me, that's kind of strange. Like, you would think that he would have had built up the confidence to believe, in this year plus layoff that he's had, that he could at least nullify or compete in the grappling with Sterling. I mean, he had this whole time to kind of look at what Sterling's tendencies are in the grappling and kind of try to negate them or find a way to counter them. Or maybe it's just I'm totally misreading that. But that to me is kind of a weird thing that they're saying. And I think a lot of people are putting a lot of stock into the outside noise in this build up to this fight. Like, they're talking about Sterling getting forced into the fight and 2 weight cuts in real short succession and having an injury and all this stuff that I think is going to be totally irrelevant to the fight. Like, I think the weight cut myth with Sterling is not true, man. Like, the guy, yeah, he's a huge guy. That's obvious. He's someone that has even said himself he wants to go to 45 after this fight. But I think a lot of that has to do with Moroz, man. I think a lot of that has to do with him wanting to get out of the way from Moroz and kind of running out of people that he wants to fight at 135 with names. He gets to go up and challenge himself against a huge name in Alexander Volkanovski and the pound for pound number 1 fighter in the world. So that's something that you can get motivated for. But look at his weight cuts, man. He's weighing at 134 and a half. Like, he's going way under. Like, if he was struggling that much, why would he be weighing in at 134? Like, obviously the weight cut is a lot easier, I think, than he leads on than people believe. I don't think it's a crazy weight cut. And, Sean O'Malley isn't a small guy either for the weight. The guy's 5'10". He's really big. So I don't know. I don't buy that a lot of this outside noise with the fight. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect. I think that Aljo's going to look like Aljo, and Sean's going to have to beat that version of him. And, like, you look at these guys stylistically, it's like, how could you pick O'Malley? I mean, I get that O'Malley has an advantage on the feet, and I think he's an incredible striker. I mean, his ability to strike off the back foot is impressive. If you even if you put him against the cage or put him in these unenviable positions, he could land strikes and get out of the way. His check hook is incredible, and he has all the kicks in the arsenal. He will attack the body, the legs, the head. I mean, the guy's a very high volume striker too, but he did get dropped a couple times. His last fight, he got hit clean, and he was getting backed up. I feel like Sterling's striking, it isn't good, but I think it's a little underrated. Like, I think he throws faster punches than Sean, especially early with his straight punches. And I also believe that his kicks are going to be more active. I think he's going to throw a lot more volume than O'Malley early in the fight. And he's not a dumb guy. Like, Aljamain isn't going to blitz in. He's not going to, get wild trying to close the distance on him against the cage and get hit with something. I just don't see that happening, man. Like, I think Aljamain could be a lot more competitive in the striking than Sean is in the wrestling and the grappling. And picking Sean, it's like you're wishing on a prayer, man. I mean, who have we seen him grapple? We haven't seen him grapple anybody or wrestle with anybody in any of his fights. Like, he hasn't fought any grapplers whatsoever. The only time we saw him on the ground, he had his leg compromised with Cheeto, and it was looking real weird, man. Like, he was, like, trying to control a wrist like the guy had a gi on to me. It's like, bro, you can't be fighting like a jiu-jitsu match on the ground. Like, the dude's going to bash your head in, and that's kind of what happened. But I don't know if a lot of that had to do with him kind of being checked out because he was hurt. But it's like, I don't really get it. Like, I see maybe with the money line, you could say, okay, the money line's off because fights start on the feet, and Sean's the better striker. He's long. He's going to be the best striker that Aljamain has ever faced. And all that's probably true, but we've seen Aljamain get knocked out once with a knee that was kind of like the perfect shot. And besides that, he's never been finished. O'Malley's, to me, kind of has overrated power, and he gets backed up, man. I just don't see him competing physically when these guys engage, like in a wrestling match or a grappling match. I think Aljamain's going to be way stronger. I think he can get him to the ground and dominate him on top. Sean O'Malley's never even been in a main event. Like, we've never seen him in a main event. We've never seen him headline a card. We've never seen him go 5 rounds. All this is brand new territory for Sean, and Sean's the one that's having to push the fight. He's going on all these different media outlets. He's talking about the fight, and Sterling is the champ, but has less media obligations. And I feel like O'Malley, it's kind of like the Conor McGregor effect, where a lot of people are seeing it and saying, okay, I mean, maybe we're gonna see an Aldo McGregor too, where a champion is born, a star is born on the same night, and he kind of makes a name for himself off one of the best champions that a division has ever seen, and he beats him easily and beats him in a crazy fashion. I mean, maybe, we'll see a lightning strike twice in a bottle like that, but I got to go with Sterling. I think he's going to end up submitting him. I just don't have faith in O'Malley's grappling. I don't think that his cardio either. I don't know if his cardio is going to hold up if it's a heavy grappling pace. Everyone talks about Aljamain Sterling's cardio, but who knows about Sean O'Malley's cardio if it's a heavy wrestling style fight. So, personally, I'm going to say that Sterling gets this one done inside the distance, either by submission or TKO from the top position, and I think he moves up to fight Volkanovski and try to become a double champ. So that's kind of what I think is going to go down in this fight, on this fight card. So hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to this full card breakdown and enjoyed some of my commentary and things I had to say about the fight. As far as party of the week goes, and my most confident pick for my party of the week, this one I think it's kind of a difficult card to really parlay a lot of guys, but I'll say to go with a parlay with Gregory Rodrigues and Weili Zhang. I'll say that could be a decent parlay. But really, if I would say, I would say try to bet on some of these underdogs. I think some of these underdogs could cash, like Blackshear, like Pedro, like Chris Weidman, Maryna Moroz. So I think it's going to be more money line betting some underdog card. And for my most confident pick on the card, I guess I would have to say probably Natalia Silva, but I feel like this card, it's like everyone is live as an underdog. There's a lot of live underdogs that could get the win and really surprise people. So besides that, guys, like I said at the beginning of the video, we've been killing it on the Patreon. Everyone that goes over there, you help support the channel. You help keep these videos going on YouTube, and you help keep everything going on the channel and just MMA Prediction Guru brand in general. And you get to win some money, man. So you'll get to go over to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, get access to the bets. I got PFL going on this week. There's some LFA going on this week, some KSW. So there's some stuff going on outside of the UFC that I'm going to be covering, that I'm going to have some betting breakdowns on as well. So please, guys, go over to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. I would really appreciate that. And besides that, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm out.